was passed on March 26, 2025, and while it was created with important intentions, we believe key amendments are necessary to better support the individuals and communities it impacts. Our presentation will highlight why this bill matters, where the gaps currently exist, and how our proposed changes can lead to more efficient outcomes. Perfect. Utah House Bill 281 requires parental notification before schools discuss certain mental health topics with students. While the goal is transparency, it can unintentionally limit students from getting help when they need it because they may fear their information won't stay private. This affects students of all ages who may be experiencing abuse, neglect, or unsafe home environments. These students often rely on schools as the safest place to reach out for help, and limiting confidentiality can discourage them from speaking up. This matters because students may be hesitant to reach out for support, which delays early intervention that can lead to worsening the issue and safety risks. Part of how I contributed is making a Google survey and sending it out to peers, students, parents, and social workers to inform them about the bill and better understand their opinions.
Oh, the way that I contributed was I talked to therapists in the Weber region, and they highly opposed this bill. They actually were surprised it even passed. They didn't even know that it did. And they were opposing it, and they were saying, oh, I can't believe that really passed. And they were concerned with the things that Caitlin was saying about it discouraging children from reaching out to counselors. And so, which perpetuates the cycle. And as we can see in our data points, like 1 in 5 teens are diagnosed with a mental health condition, and 43% struggle mentally and don't want to talk about it. And so it's hard anyway. And so this is like just putting another barrier in front of that. And we can see that 70.2% of alleged perpetrators were the victim's parent. And so we can see that this happens in the families quite often. And that's what we are worried about, is it continues the cycle of this abuse if children are afraid of speaking out.
Introduced in January, the House Bill 281, which was finalized in March, which focuses largely on students' privacy and parental consent in school-based therapy, mental health services, and health curriculum. Some value transparency, others worry this discourages students from seeking help. As it changes the processes for mental health services in schools, it changes who can provide them, how consent works, and how parents are notified. There are many inequalities in this, but racism, sexism, ageism, ableism, and there are many other factors on access disparities and cultural disparities that go hand in hand. People who don't have access to mental health services outside of school won't be able to access them comfortably. Um, people who like children may feel like they're being like infantized, like felt like they're being not expressive and that they just feel like that their parents aren't listening to them. Which is why this matters most, is because the student's safety should be the primary goal. And if children can't go to their parents for safety, then this affects them. Um, so I think like mental health professionals are way concerned about that. And I've also talked to JRC representatives, and they had like the same concerns about people who are running away from home not having a safe place to go, because now that their parents know, it'll be just like a weird dynamic between them. So
The overview, we looked at who sponsored the bill, which was Stephanie Grishis, and then Mike Curtis drafted the bill. And the main reason the bill was created was to have more parental support, more parental involvement in their children's mental health. We also recognize that the education committee chairs were able to present changes, bring this back up to the House floor. But we also recognize that the National Association of Social Workers were strongly against this bill, and so were the Utah School Counselors Association, as they were worried about the unintended consequences.
For our power nap, we have that Kirk Cullimore, I hope I said that name right, was a Senate sponsor and co-sponsor for the bill and helped guide the bill through the Utah Senate. Mike Curtis was a legal advisor and the drafting attorney for the bill and would provide input on feasibility and amendment. Governor Spencer Cox signed the bill. For barriers and opportunities, we have barriers for the bill included strong political support for or against parental rights, students fearing speaking out against their parents, therapists and educators worried over losing their jobs if they make an opposition that is publicly made and how there could be backlash for that, and the limited awareness of the impact on the bill. The leverage points and opportunities were legislators caring about parental rights, a student's well-being, and their political reputation, the governor valuing family involvement and our education system stability. Also, there being access to voices of students, parents, and educators, for an opportunity to make sure that there are clear and simple summaries of the bill, which makes sure that there's an emphasis on how it affects students and parents. Also having shared updates that people have access to, and creating literature and videos that can explain visually the purpose and impact of the bill. For campaign phases and actions, there's lobbying action and contacting legislators through email, phone, or in person, and reaching out to key decision makers. Stakeholder collaboration and engaging mental health avenues like NASW, NAMI, and Utah Youth Village, and hoping to create a unified statement and collection of stories that form counselors and students, and mobilizing that support through those stories, and with email campaigns and petitions. Also making sure that there's public awareness, especially with interviews with students and parents and our community, and finding that not many of them knew about the bill, and creating social media posts to create awareness, and having flyers presented at PTA meetings and community groups. And I know through me, when I was doing interviews with children between ages 12 to 18, they didn't even know that this was a bill, and majority of them said that they wouldn't even see a school counselor, knowing that their parents would be part of that information that's shared, when they don't even share this information with their parents at home. And it's kind of resounding what everyone else has said, that they're worried about the repercussions with family and abuse that may be happening.
Lobbying activity. Action was taken by gathering information, talking to the individuals affected, and sharing their concerns with someone higher up, like the legislators. The feedback was collected from students, parents, counselors, and mental health workers. That information was then used to communicate to a higher up about how House Bill 281 is impacting the youth. The immediate result was the information that was gathered to raise awareness, concerns were shared, and were then brought up to legislators, which can then help to promote and inform a change. I was able to reach out to school counselors in Box Elder County who have all experienced struggles with the bill. They feel like it is not beneficial and that it creates barriers between them and the kids. I also work on a pediatric behavioral health unit, and I asked 12 of our older adolescents their thoughts and concerns on the bill. 11 out of the 12 were extremely against it, claiming how it would interfere with their trust towards the counselor, and again, that they wouldn't even attempt to try and talk to a counselor. One kid was in the middle on the fence about it, whether because they could understand both sides of the situation, but overall majority of the kids and the counselors worry that the bill can potentially end up making abuse worse.
Real quick on the part of the actions that we took, most of us talked to school counselors or kids, and they were really eager to talk to us about it. They were eager to tell us the parts that they were against, and a lot of it was the unintended consequences. Some of the counselors that I talked to, especially Kim, she had a lot of emotions, and she was one of the main counselors in the state that was lobbying against this, due to just the consequences of them telling the parents exactly what they're talking to, because that's the requirement of the bill. The part that seemed a little bit difficult and was difficult was trying to get a hold of some of the state representatives. I sent emails, tried to make phone calls. I even sent text messages to Jill Colfort, who I just happened to run into while doing a Operation Homefront food drive just this month. We exchanged phone numbers. I thought it was, our opportunity to finally actually get a hold of a state representative, but that seemed to be mute and we weren't able to set up any conversation. Looking back when I was doing the follow-up and I found out that she didn't even open or respond to my message, is the last thing that she said was, well, that's just too bad. When I told her the part of the bill that we were against was the unintended consequences. It's not the whole bill. The bill itself is good. It just needs to have some amendments to fix that part of it. Counselors are too overwhelmed of having to make contact with the parents every time they talk to a student. Weber County, which is the county that I talk to the counselors in, they have canceled all of their groups for their students, the coping skills, the food group or the friends groups. They're not doing that stuff because they're required to contact parents after every time they talk, and it's overwhelming to them, and they don't want to, give them information that's going to cause problems. I did have one counselor that was for having to talk to the parents because it gave them the ability to, see why they didn't want their kids talking to counselors. And, she's a brand new counselor, and that was the one part that she was looking forward to. And so, moving forward, I'm hoping that, the counselors or the programs that are advocating against this, get those amendments to just fix those small little problems. But again, the bill itself isn't the problem. It's just a few small little things.
Said we weren't really able to meet with any of the legislators, but we were able to meet with parents and students and school counselors. I was able to meet with the school counselors where I went to school, and they all talked about the unintended consequences. And so luckily now, due to what we did, more parents and students are informed, more of the social workers that work in schools are informed, and more people are talking about it, which can lead to impacts later down the road.
Well, that we all had the same compassion and fire to help protect children who may be in abusive situations. It would have been helpful, as a group to have more concrete steps that we could take each specific week. Next time, I think I would like to check in more frequently just to kind of figure out where to go next. Just with something like this, you want to kind of have a multifaceted approach where you can attack it from multiple different sides. So I think that would have been helpful. We learned, just as our professor has said, that the wheel of progress and policy moves very, very slowly. We did see that happen in this case. It did help us understand how to use our voice and be able to advocate for changes in our own community. And even if the people in power who can make these changes and implement them don't listen to you or agree with you, it's still important to spread awareness, because ultimately that's how change comes about. I did speak with a licensed clinical social worker. She was extremely concerned with the unintended consequences of this bill and kind of the impact it would have for kids on the outskirts who don't have a safe place at home and who do go to school to kind of have an outlet for their frustrations or their worries or stresses or things like that. It was interesting to research effective ways to talk with people and spread awareness, because a lot of people get very passionate and very heated. I think we tried to focus on the safety of the children, which I think is the bill's original intentions, which I think is great. But just kind of to show, like, to shine light on a circumstance that you may not initially think of when you think of this bill. Because in our survey, I thought it was really interesting that over 80% of our participants were in support of this bill, but a similar number of participants also agreed that there should be other safeguards put in place for those children in abusive situations, and that we should in great detail define what immediate risk is, and so that the licensed professionals who are trained to handle situations like this know exactly what steps to take to ensure that they are protecting the child and also not breaking any rules or policies.